Hello, hello, beautiful souls. This episode is for you if you are a small business owner and you want your business to go from unknown to being seen, heard, and valued. And for this very reason, I have my expert with me today, award-winning PR coach Gloria Chou. As a former TV producer and US diplomat, Gloria spent her entire career using various media to elevate and inspire. Now she is the host of the Small Business PR podcast and has helped over 10,000 small businesses get featured in top tier media without ads and agency. Doesn't that sound amazing? Welcome to the show, Gloria.
Thank you, Lucy. I'm so happy to be here.
Awesome. So, a common theme I hear from coaching calls for whatever goal they're working on is that they are not ready yet. So, from your perspective, who is ready for PR?
Oh, I love this question. This is the biggest roadblock. I always say if you're ready to take a customer's money for whatever product or service, you're ready for PR. And the biggest myth that we've kind of all bought into is that the news only wants to cover, big players and businesses of a certain level. And that's simply not true. And I think this is what the PR industry wants to tell us so they can charge us crazy fees. In New York, it starts around $10,000 a month for a retainer. But there is another way. And it starts with you believing that journalists want to interview people from all walks of life. They want to feature fresh, diverse perspectives, not just the big names, because otherwise they would probably lose credibility very quickly. Think about it, right? If they only cover the Elon Musk of the world or like big Fortune 500 companies, no one would really believe them. So you're actually doing them a favor by putting your name in the hat and just sharing your perspective. And you're making their work easier because they are churning out content all the time.
Yes, conventionally, when we hear PR, we think of big agencies, huge budgets, right? But I know your work is all about debunking this myth that you need big budgets. So walk us through what kind of budgets do most of your clients work with when they first start PR?
So they actually, most of my people are very bootstrapping, so they don't really have a budget. And if you look at what's available to them, right? If you want to get more eyeballs, you're really doing one of three things. One, you're pouring all your time into social media, which honestly is not great because you don't own it. And we know that TikTok is going to be banned. Who knows how long it's going to take for Instagram's algorithm to even go harder on us, right? Right now, all across the board, we're seeing views are down about 30%. And that's because they simply want you to pay to boost your reviews. Or you can pay for ads, which historically they have gone up over 400% in cost in just the last few years. So that's really also not great for us too. And let's be honest, these two methods have no SEO. So you're not really building a long-term asset. And that's why PR, I mean, like earned media. So that's you getting featured in an article, or you being on a podcast, not those scammy DMs that you get about those fake features. I'm talking about like real organic features. That's the highest leverage marketing activity that you can do because it simultaneously checks all the boxes. Not only does it give you credibility and traffic, but it also gives you SEO. So as founders, we always need to think, am I working smarter and not harder? And am I really creating a long-term asset for my business, which, SEO and PR is, or am I just doing busy work? And so I think having a mindset, a perspective shift of like, I am going to prioritize PR and that it is absolutely available to me. And even if I don't have to pay an agency, is absolutely game changing for the entrepreneurs who do choose to get featured in the media.
Love what you said. So, how do you get in the media for free if you're just starting your business?
Yeah. So this is a great question. First thing is that let's just distill what PR is. And I think for so long it's been shrouded in secrecy, complexity, privilege, and at its core, PR is two things. It's writing a good pitch and sending it out. And if you know how to do those two things, you can put it together and create a system in your business where you're constantly planting the seeds for visibility because you never know when that garden might flourish, right? Journalists have a very meticulous way of organizing their inbox. And so you don't know when they're going to be tasked with writing an article and they're going to go back into their inbox and do a quick search and your name might pop up. Like this has happened so many times. Some people get featured right away. Some people get featured 3 months later. What matters is that you need to throw your name in the hat to get featured. And so it starts with us knowing that we are ready and that they want to hear from us. And journalists don't care about how many followers you have. You can buy followers today. So it's not a popularity contest. what we need to know is that journalists are not going to buy from you and they don't care about your product brochure and your benefits and features. So fundamentally, this involves a different way of communicating, right? As founders, we're so good at marketing ourselves. But I'm telling you that in order to get featured in the media, you need to take off that marketing hat and put on a different hat. And that hat is the one of an expert, of an industry authority. And so instead of leading with what you sell, who you are, the results, you want to lead with things like what is the seasonality of things? Is there any seasonal relevance? Is there a greater news trend? Is there something trending on social media? Can you give commentary? And so I always talk about the 10 top angles that get you featured, and seasonality is one of them. For example, at the time of recording, right now it's New Year. So, New Year, new angles, habits, wellness routines. If it's around graduation, it could be something around career advice or, job seeking. If you are in an industry that's very heavily regulated, like, pharma or healthcare or taxes or finances, there's always a change in policy and regulation. And that is always newsworthy. Also, think about ways that you can take a contrarian angle. So if all the experts are saying, do it this way, and you're saying, well, actually, I found this to be helpful, that's a great angle. Another great angle is to piggyback on what people are already talking about. So right now, there's a lot of news about AI, right? There's a lot of news about what's happening in the world. So think about what are the changes happening in your industry and how can you pitch according to that. And so these are kind of the big ways that you can start to formulate your story angle. Because remember, there's no such thing as a newsworthy company or product. I've written pitches for bath salts and, candles. They all get featured. It's just about tailoring your story into something that has seasonality and relevance to the news cycle.
Would you say pitching is a numbers game or more of a strategy and technique?
Yeah, I think it's both. I think once you have your kind of three or four buckets of topics that you want to talk about, then you have, your again, remember PR is writing a pitch and sending it out. And then you have your media list of who to send it to. And obviously in our program, we have a database of like 100,000 journalists. Then it becomes a numbers game. Yes, because you want to be able to keep sending it out and you want to keep following up. A lot of times the biggest mistake is that, okay, the founders sent a pitch and then they're hiding in the bathroom because they're like, oh my God, it's a very unnatural act. And so don't feel bad that you're afraid or anxious, but just know that this is how news has been for decades, right? They accept cold pitches. Journalists understand that people cold pitch them. And it's just a matter of doing it and feeling comfortable pressing that send button. I had a student who actually ended up selling his company and now he's building his third startup. And he got so much press success. And he told me everything you want is on the other side of that send button. So if we can orientate ourselves and realize that like it's just a numbers game and you just have to keep pressing that send button, it becomes less daunting. And trust me, from all the journalists I've talked to, they're not sitting there on their thrones judging us, thinking, oh, well, this Gloria sent me a pitch again. No, they don't have time for that. They are writing out stories, and it's just about you putting a story in front of them so that they can use it. And so always think, how can you be of value to their audience? What is your audience looking for? And there's ways around that. Like you can find out what are the Google search trends, what's happening, right? And then there's also other ways you can find journalists. So we can definitely go into that. But I've given you kind of what to think about in terms of what to write. And the other part of PR is, okay, now you have what you want to write. Like, who do we send it to? And you can find that online. I mean, this is public information, but I would first install a Google News Alert, which is free, by the way, and Google News Alert about your industry, and it'll give you all the articles written about on your topic every day. And it's as simple as you copy and pasting the writer's first name, last name, and email, which is again public information, into an ever expanding Excel spreadsheet. And then sooner or later, you have your own media list. You can also use things like Quoted or Haro, which now has changed. But basically, there's all these websites where you can sign up as a source, and journalists are looking for people to interview every day, and you kind of can see what the inquiries are. And if you do fit the description, then you can respond, right? You can also follow hashtags on social media, whether it's LinkedIn or Twitter. And a hashtag I like to follow is journal request. And it means that journalists are requesting certain types of interviews with different people. So these are kind of the grassroots way you can kind of figure out who might be interested in writing about you in a kind of a more reactive way. But let's talk about other times of year, right? How do you just pitch a story if they're, let's say, not saying, oh, I need to interview someone. Well, one way to do it is to know that you need to find who are the writers covering your industry or beat. So you're not going to be sending an email to editor at BuzzFeed.com because they're not reading it. You need to find out who is the specific industry writer. So if you are someone in fitness and health, it might be the fitness or health writer. If you are someone who makes a physical product, it might be the shopping or commerce writer. If you are in travel and luxury, it could be person that covers travel. So do you see where I'm getting at? You want to find the specific writer who is writing about your topic. A lot of writers now are freelance, which means that they write for multiple outlets and they're constantly kind of rotating around. And you can find out where they're writing by just simply going to their Instagram bio or their Twitter or LinkedIn bio to see where they're writing.
Oof, that was a lot of goodies. Thank
Mhm.
you so much for sharing, Gloria. And I remember in the early stage of me pitching to be on other people's podcasts or opportunities, it was really daunting to hit that send button, as you talked about, right? It's about just hitting that send button, but it could be hard in the beginning. And what helped me was instead of hitting send, like getting that emotional roller coaster ride right away, I used to schedule them out for another time, like in the afternoon or the following morning, so that it didn't feel so stressful. And then when it actually went out, it wasn't on my mind. So
Yeah.
that took off a lot of load for me.
Yeah, no, that's so good. And you can also schedule send, right? Like there's a lot of
Hmm.
different things where it's like you well, as long as you have your pitch, you load it in there and then you can schedule send. And here's another great tip for your audience is don't send any emails until you have an email tracking software. And this
Hmm.
is great because it tells you if someone is opening your email, if someone is clicking it. And that way we don't have to have this drama in our head about, oh, this journalist hates us because honestly, they don't care about you. They're very busy. And so if they're not opening it, we need to solve for that first. So is it a deliverability issue? Is it an out of office issue? And then if the email tracking device is saying that they've opened it and they're actually opening it multiple times, your pitch, it means that they really like it. They're just looking for a place for it. That's when you would go in with the follow up, engage with their content. Remember, journalists are people and they have egos. So, like, compliment them and say, hey, I love the article that you wrote last year on this. Are you doing the same for this year? Or I think it's fabulous that you wrote an article on this. So, like, having a compliment and like showing them that you've read their article is such a great way to start an email off.
Hmm. Such good advice. I love it. I love my email tracking. And that goes the same with clients who, if they've opened my mail 8 times, they're more interested than someone who's just opening it once, right? So
100%.
it
Yeah.
goes a long way. You talked about mistakes. I love what you mentioned. Are there any other mistakes that you've seen people do wrong with PR?
Yeah, so I teach a proprietary CPR pitching method, and that's from just cold pitching thousands of times. So, fun fact for your audience, I've never worked a day in my life in any PR or marketing agency. So, being an outsider and not having any contacts, I had to cold call the operator at the New York Times. And I think from just cold calling and emailing and just getting honestly rejected so many times, I started to figure out, okay, what gets someone to respond and what doesn't. And I put it in this framework called CPR method, which I teach inside my program. But basically, CPR stands for credibility, point of view, and relevance. And you want your pitch to have all three elements. And so if I'm pitching someone, let's start with the subject line. The subject line should not have your name, your company name, or the word pitch in it because it's relevant to the journalist. Instead, you want to have something that's timely and specific. For example, 3 top communication tools for 2025 for introverts. Do you see how that's timely, relevant, and specific? And then if you are to start the email off, you want to start off with the relevance, which is the R in CPR first, because you want to get their attention right off the bat. So talk about as people are looking for X, Y, and Z tools to start off the new year, because right now it's Q1. You see how that's relevant. And then you have the P in CPR, which is point of view. So usually 3 bullet points. So that could be 3 insights, 3 tips, 3 contrarian things, 3 data points. And then you want to conclude with 1 sentence credibility. Don't go too crazy here. You don't need to have lots of, previous press mentions. It could be as simple as I am a founder and here's what I've noticed with my audience. I'm happy to chat more about these insights and here's how I can be reached. Um, do not attach your pitch deck or like your resume, please. It's going to trigger their spam filter. Instead, use a hyperlink and say, I'm happy to share more. Here's my story. You can click here. If you are in e-commerce or product, you could probably embed one photo because it's visual. And then for more photos, you can attach a link to a Dropbox link or like more high resolution photos. So use the hyperlink.
Love your tips. Thank you so much for your knowledge. And if people want to learn more about doing PR the easy way, where can they find you?
Yeah, for sure. So I have a free PR masterclass that actually shows you word for word a CPR pitch. I got someone featured 12 times without any PR agency experience or contacts. And I show you like word for word. And you can watch that at gloriachoupr.com/masterclass. That's Gloria, CHOUPR.com/masterclass. And I'm on Instagram as well. So I share a lot. I share anything from healing generational trauma with my mom to funny Cardi B memes. So you're in for a ride. You can hit me up on Instagram at Gloria Chou PR. And if you DM me the word pitch, I will also give you an additional freebie so that you can take the first stab at your CPR pitch.
Beautiful. And what is a favorite quote you go by in life?
Oh, I love this quote by Maya Angelou. And she said, people will not remember what you said and what you did, but they will always remember how you made them feel.
I love this so much. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Lucy.